Hello, and welcome to the Guilbault Girls Show, where you will have the opportunity to hear from mothers, fathers, siblings, and individuals themselves about their journey of living with a disability. I know, it's called Guilbault Girls, but we have a bonus for you as we get the Guilbault boys to interview some of the dads and siblings and get their perspectives too. We'll also have special guests from time to time to share the many resources that are available to those living with a disability and their families. So get ready to laugh, smile, cry, maybe even get a little angry when you hear some of these stories of their day-to-day struggles. But let's not forget their many triumphs. As they say, it takes a village. And if it weren't for our village, we wouldn't be where we are today. So join us. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Guilbault Girls Show. I'm your host, Karen Guilbault, along with my daughter, Faith. So today's guest is Danielle Demchick. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
Okay, made me nervous. An advocate manifesting change in how the real world is reflected in today's media. Danielle has been an active member of the New York Casting Community since 2004. Nickelodeon was her casting home for over 14 years, where she tapped into her love of developing young talent. From live action and animation, scripted and unscripted, long form and short form, and even podcasts, she has and loves to cast it all. The co-VP of Advocacy for the Casting Society of America, her work elevating underrepresented communities has been barrier breaking and continues to motivate her to manifest change in how the real world is seen on screen. A leader in the organization's Equity and Entertainment Committee, she serves on the board of both the Casting Society of America and Casting Society Cares, where her focus is on training and education. She prides herself on being an ally to artists and aspiring talent of all abilities. She serves as a faculty advisory for Respectability, and she's on the Actors Fund's Looking Ahead Advisory Board. In addition to her work in casting, she is currently pursuing a master's degree in disability studies at the City University of New York. When she's not working, you can find her on her Peloton, cooking while enjoying one of her many favorite podcasts, or taking her vitamins. So first off, thank you so much for being on the show, and congratulations on being a new mom. How exciting.
Thank you. I'm excited to see you both and get to chat with you both. I feel like I've known you both for a long time, but we haven't gotten to really sit down and chat. So.
I know, which is pretty cool. Love it.
And you know what's funny? When you first started that one thing in 2004, I was only 1 year old. That was only 1 year after I was born.
Yes, 2004. Yep.
Yeah, I've been working your whole life, basically.
Yeah. So can you share with the listeners a little bit about your journey on how you got into the industry and how you actually got to be where you are today?
Yeah. So I started as an actor. I was a kid actor. I started when I was 7. My mom is a speech pathologist, and she had a patient whose daughter was an agent, and I would go and sing at the nursing homes, when I was off from school, because that was what I like to do, for fun, was just go with my mom to work and get to sing. That's so cool. So this one woman was like, "Oh, your daughter's so cute." My mom was like, "Yeah, whatever, thanks." Appreciative. But she said, "My daughter's actually a talent agent, and I think she should meet her." And then I ended up meeting her. My mom didn't really want me to do that, but so I acted professionally for a few years. My mom was just like, it was a lot. Being a stage parent is a lot. I know know from having been on set with Faith what it can be like and how difficult the other moms can be and that kind of stuff. So that was my introduction into the business, but I always wanted to be on the other side of the table. I always loved what my agent did. She still is a working agent today. Her name's Nancy Carson. She's amazing.
I saw her on one of the interviews that we did for Gamut.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So she was really, she also was one of the first people that I saw representing people of all abilities and all backgrounds and all genders. And I think I just saw what an inclusive office she had. And I was like, wow, I really like this. I really like what she's doing. I want to be on the other side of the table. So I found out what casting was, and I, kind of put myself out there, told anyone I knew that I wanted to be in casting, and a family friend was like, "Oh, I actually had my college roommate is a casting director. You should meet her. And from there, I was able to get an internship. And then I also worked in the agency side. And, I just kind of kept pushing forward. I knew what I wanted. It's a blessing and a curse that, at 8 years old, I knew what I wanted to do. Because nothing else was I couldn't think of doing anything else. And it's a really hard business, as you know, to be in, no matter what side of the table you're on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I knew that was what I wanted to do. And I was really strategic about it because I was working in casting as a casting associate, and I got offered the job at Nickelodeon, and it was a casting assistant job. And it was also an executive assistant job. So it was really being an assistant again, getting someone coffee, scheduling their meetings, doing their expense reports. But I thought that being at Nickelodeon was a really good career move. I thought that had stability. It has a name. I love the content. It's a brand, I'm really going to get to learn something soup to nuts, be a part of the development process. And a lot of people were like, really? You're, 22 and you're already a casting associate. Why would you take a step back? I was like, exactly. I'm 22. I have all the time in the world to learn, I should do what I think is going to be the smartest long-term. And that's what I always tell people, I always tell actors, I always tell aspiring casting assistants or associates or anyone working in this business is it's the long game. It's, you have to look out for what you want long term. So that's what I was doing. And after a year and a half of being an assistant, I got promoted and kept growing there. And I just have kind of kept at it. There are always going to be setbacks. There are always going to be no's. There's always going to be things that you have to navigate that aren't, easy and fun, but I just kind of kept at it because I knew what I wanted to do.
Oops. She's playing with her cubes and just dropped them. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. So what was the next question that you wanted to ask her? I'm gonna bring it up closer so you can read it better.
What idea did you begin?
What led you to begin?
What led you to begin directing?
Nope. Being an advocate for people with disabilities.
So I grew up in a very inclusive family. I don't think I realized it. I had a lot of people with disabilities around me. One of my mom's really good friends was deaf and her daughter was a CODA. So I had to sign if I was playing at her house because if I wanted to ask her mom for something, I had to learn to sign. So I kind of just grew up around that. And then my mom also signed, and my mom is a speech pathologist, and my uncle works with learning disabilities. He was a chief communication officer at the National Center for Learning Disabilities, and now he's a consultant in that space. He really focuses on dyslexia and ADHD and neurodiversity. So I've always had that around me, but I always saw a separation with my worlds. I had the industry, I would go on my auditions and I didn't see anybody with disabilities or hear of anybody with a disability or see roles that were written like that. And then when I would come home or go to a family thing, there'd be people with disabilities, and I never questioned it. It was just part of my life. And then as I got older, I was like, wait, why are these worlds so separate? I mean, this is the real world, is people with disabilities. People with disabilities, are doing every job that you see. There's no job that someone with a disability can't do and isn't doing. Which I think is I know I don't even think I've ever said this to anyone, but I actually had a hairdresser growing up who only had one eye.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She was born without one eye. So people were like, you go to a hairdresser? How does she see to cut your hair? I'm like, she can see fine. She has an eye. You don't, she's great. She was a great hairdresser. I think she was probably the most expensive hairdresser too, which was so fun. Which was so fancy. But, I didn't realize that was a thing. I knew people that had all different disabilities that did all different types of jobs. And I wasn't seeing that reflected on screen. And I wasn't seeing that when I started working in casting. I was an assistant. So I was scheduling people or, looking through pictures, but not making the decisions of who would come in at that point. And I was like, why aren't we seeing people with disabilities for any role, not a disability specific role? I'm saying just if we're seeing a kid, at a birthday party, giving the other kid a birthday present. Why wouldn't one of those kids, if we're going to actually reflect the real world, 1 in 4 people have disabilities, 1 in 4 people at that birthday party has a disability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a couple friends with prosthetic eyes.
Really?
Yes, you do. Mm-hmm. Yep. She goes to the Maryland School for the Blind.
Right.
So yes, she has several friends. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about what your job entails as a casting director?
So I get to, kind of help bring stories to life, which is really, really cool. And discover actors and help encourage people to take chances on people, which is really fun. So it depends on the project. Sometimes, I'm given a script and it's like, we need to cast all of these roles, write up the character descriptions, figure out what audition material they're going to use, come up with ideas for what would be a good improv for it, all different things. Other times it's kind of handed to me like, this is what we're looking for. This is the material. But usually people are pretty collaborative about it, which is really fun. Like a project I just started on, they gave me audition material, but they were like, please read the script. They were so happy I wanted to read the scripts and like possibly pull my own material. Right. And then I was like, you know what, I think we should add this improv, or we should add this so we can really get a good sense of these people to see a little more, because everything's still virtual. And that's not going to change anytime soon. So a great way to get to know someone is more than just the script, because, a big part of an audition used to be like getting to go in the room and actually talk to somebody. Right. And now it's like, you just deliver this tape and you're on your way. So it's nice to have that little bit of interaction or conversation. And when the pandemic started, I basically told my husband, like, my life is over. My job is over. There will be no more casting. I would just walk around the city. There was only like 2 weeks that weren't busy. That was it. We went straight at Nickelodeon to shooting things from home and pivoting the style of content. It was amazing. Like, it was so brilliant. But I remember there were like a few days where I didn't really have much to do, and I was just walking around the city aimlessly. Like, my husband's like, you can do something else. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to walk.
And that was my next question, was with the pandemic, like, what changes have you seen in the industry? And, to share some of the positive and negatives, and what things did you guys continue to do, now?
So I think it really, especially for actors with disabilities, but even just anything that makes it a logistical challenge to get into an audition room, it completely changed the industry. Like, anyone can get in the audition room now. It's a Zoom. And that to me that's access. Yeah, it's definitely so important. And I don't think that should change. I think you should have the option and I don't think we're there yet, but if and when we get to a place where it's safe to do more in person than we are right now, then great
option.
Let's do it. But I think you should always be giving people an option to be remote and to be able to not have to navigate a space that, even when I worked at a huge company like Nickelodeon, and we had this beautiful wheelchair accessible building. I mean, we had wheelchair accessible bathrooms. We had everything you could possibly need. If you didn't know which door to enter, if you were using a wheelchair, you would go to the main entrance. You couldn't get it.
Wow. Yeah.
And then you're late to your audition. So you're flustered. So there's this, so there's that. So there's so many things that like, we don't have to, or like, if you are in a wheelchair in New York City, not every subway stop is accessible. So it's going to take you double the time to get where you need to go, because you have to get off at the accessible stop and then switch to a different line. It's like,
it gets overwhelming, and and the anxiety sets in.
Pushing me in my wheelchair in the middle of Chinatown. I'm thinking, I'm going to go in a ditch. I'm going to go in a ditch.
Yes, because we were actually going to the photo shoot when Mindy was doing the soft launch for Gamut. And I had Faith in the wheelchair, and I was trying to push with one hand. And then I had her walker behind. Actually, I was holding the walker, which later I'm like, duh, I should just put the walker on the ground, flipped it over, because the wheels would have just rolled. It would have been a lot easier, but I'm trying to hold her walker in the air with one hand. Stupid me had on a dress, and it was windy that day. I'm like, oh my God, am I ever going to get there? And I literally thought a few times I was like trying to get her walker, hold on to her walker and move her wheelchair so I wouldn't like go off the sidewalk when I was like trying to go around people. Yeah, it was pretty overwhelming. And that's another thing too, how is it when they go on set? Because a lot of the individuals need somebody to help them navigate, whether it's, just if they have to go to the bathroom or, for if they're changing wardrobes or, it could be a number of things, how to navigate set. How are they about individuals having caretakers or someone be with them?
I mean, you can always have a caretaker if you need that. And that's something actually that Gamut's really amazing about with their accessibility rider which is like, added on a contract. If someone books something and needs that, you have to be able to have that. I mean, that's just a legality and a safety precaution.
Yeah.
But it's also, what did you say, Faith?
Legitly.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also important though, that it's, something that the production understands. So there's a newer role in the industry, which is an accessibility coordinator.
Okay.
And that's a really important job because it's not only about somebody who really needs a caretaker with them, but there are things that you can do to make a set more accessible that makes everybody's day and job safer. Like having, a ramp obviously is important for a wheelchair user, but it also makes moving props easier or something heavy. And then an accessibility coordinator also is often dealing with like coordinating talent's allergies. Like what if somebody's on set who has a peanut allergy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're not aware of it, or it doesn't come up until or you need somebody to be, dealing with all of that. And then also sometimes I'll get told like this actor has a walker and it's going to be really hard for them to be in a certain type of trailer. They need, a trailer that's level to the ground. I relay that to the production. The production says, sure, of course we would do that. Somehow it gets lost in translation to somebody. Then the actor shows up on set and they don't have that trailer. And if there isn't somebody that's their sole job.
Yeah.
And that also understands like, okay, well, you know what? They were legitimately out of this trailer because there's only so many trailers that exist, and especially in New York. They were out of this trailer, which is what they requested, but this trailer is equally accessible. It's a little bit, smaller, or it's this or it's that, but it's not going to impact their ability to move in their wheelchair to get in there. And then there's also things about making the set not just accessible, but inclusive. Like you shouldn't be eating lunch by yourself because you're in a wheelchair. You should be able to eat with everybody else. I have a friend who's a pretty big actor who has a show opening off Broadway, who was just written up in the New York Times actually this week, which is really cool. And he was telling me he was on a really big show and everybody was getting their hair and makeup done together. They had this iconic celebrity on the show that day, and they were all supposed to be like bonding and doing all of these things. And the place where they were all getting their hair and makeup done together was not accessible with his walker. And it's like, wait, what? Like, they're like, oh, you stay in your trailer. We'll come to you. It's like, no, he wants to be where everybody
else is. Yeah.
And that's not inclusive. If you have a set that's accessible, but not everyone can eat lunch together, not everybody can. I had another situation similarly where I had a girl in a wheelchair and the set was totally accessible. And I made sure the bathrooms, everything, but I wasn't on set because it was during the pandemic and it was also in LA. But again, all the kids, for whatever reason, wanted to hang out in this one area that was like lofted. She can't get there. And that's not fair. Like, it impacted her experience as a cast member because it was an ensemble cast. Like, if 6 people can do one thing and one person can't, that's not inclusion.
Yeah. No. Wow.
At lunch, I don't sit with like my friends, but my other friends that are like more on my level are on the table across from me. So I just like text them. And at this point, I don't even care because the lunch period goes by so fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, even so she's residential at the Maryland School for the Blind, and sometimes they get together with the other dorms, but there's one that's uphill. So a lot of times she doesn't get to go up there, but they can push her wheelchair, but she kind of feels left out on some things. Like, she would rather go up there and spend some time with some of her friends, which actually Nadia, I don't know if you met Nadia. She was just
in a commercial.
She was just
Or,
at
like,
something
Target
with
or
Mindy and
something.
them.
Okay.
But
I think
she
I
was
know who she is.
yeah, she was in Face documentary too.
Okay,
And-
maybe I know that for
Yeah.
those reasons then. Okay.
Yeah. So they're in different dorms. So, but there's sometimes they'll do stuff up at that dorm, but she doesn't get to go up there. So she kind of feels, I don't know, feels a little certain way about that too.
Yeah, that is. Are there other kids at school that are also wheelchair users?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Nani's is a power wheelchair. And that's the one thing she was thinking is because it's up the hill, but still,
Yeah.
if somebody's pushing you in a manual one, why can't they just do that? So it's very rare she gets to go up the hill. So
Do you like residential?
Yeah.
she loves it.
It's
Do you have a roommate? How does that work?
and it's back. So I have a roommate. It's just we're working on her communication skills because it's very hard to communicate with her sometimes. But she's known me for so many years that she's just like a sister or any other kid. I find my own way to communicate, even if it's not through sign language or whatever.
Yeah. She's like, Faith is like the mother hen.
Gotcha. How have you've known her for so long because of you've gone to school together?
Yeah.
Got it.
She is 20.
Yeah. And Faith will get to stay there till she's 21 also.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm also working on her like full sentences and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so her communication is really
Yeah.
that is hard then.
Yeah.
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 Like you have to tell me what you want. I can't read your mind.
You can't read her.
That is
But
fair.
It's great because they do so much with the functional living skills too, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's
I'm
great.
the oldest one in my dorm, so I get to mentor the younger ones.
Mm-hmm.
How young are the youngest?
So the youngest is 14, and she's the one I'm getting to mentor. She is a I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say, but yeah, she's a really good kid. She's hard to
you can say it.
understand, but like once you get to know her, she is awesome.
Mm-hmm. She's paraplegic.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's amazing that she's in your dorm too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They have, I mean, they honestly run the gamut with people with individuals with, disabilities there. And, some that are completely blind, some that, just have low vision or cortical vision impairment.
Dorm with like a mild form of CP, so we have all kinds of kids. She actually has my middle name.
Oh, does she?
As her first name, so it's confusing.
That's funny. So let's talk headshots. So I know during one of the Q&As that Gamut had hosted, and I remember you talking about an individual. You were explaining how with low vision and how they had a hard time making eye contact, and how do you do that? With some of the headshots, do you want them trying to get a picture of you looking at them or looking to the side? And they had responded that it's better to have an accurate headshot. So if they look to the left, take that picture of the left. It's because it best describes them. And I felt like you were describing her because that's exactly how she is with her cortical vision impairment. She has a hard time looking at somebody in the eye when they're talking, and she always tends to look to the left. I don't know whether it's part of her brain and that's how she can concentrate and like process stuff.
My friend's like, "Why are you staring at me to the left like that?" And I was like, "I don't know. I can't help it."
So I thought that was kind of important also too about the pictures, how they said to have each one. So if they use a walker, if they use a wheelchair or canes or even the AFOs, to have pictures of all of that so they can kind of see, that they can use all of that.
But now we've been friends for years. She doesn't bother me about it as much.
Yeah.
She's used to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything else. Like we want to see who you are, in a headshot. It's not a glamour shot. It's not,
Right.
It's not your prom photo where you're dolled up. It's none of those things. I want to see what you look like on your best day is how I would describe it. But it's still not your wedding day or your prom or, you want to look like you would look if you were to do your own hair and makeup and go, they might look again a little bit better because that person did it for you for the photo. But I don't want it to look like if you're not going to make eye contact when you're in a movie or you're on set in a commercial or you're in a Broadway show, all of those things, that's fine. That's you. And we're looking for you when we're casting.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sell the inauthentic version of you to somebody, so that's just, not something I feel is ethical, or it doesn't do you any good either. So look like yourself, be like yourself. And, there are people that I feel like the eye contact thing is there probably are casting directors who disagree with me. I never want to say that I'm speaking for everybody, but for the work I do and the casting directors that I consider my peers who I've talked to about this, they all do agree. And I think on that panel, there were other people who said the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. They did. And then let's talk steps when it comes to audition. So you guys see they see the profile on the casting site, they reach out for you, to do a self-tape. Then they typically, do they come back in for a second audition, usually in person? And also speak to, because I know some people don't get it and they're like, oh, well, how come I haven't heard anything back? How sometimes you don't hear back at all if you didn't get it. Or there were times too that you hear back last minute. And even if you have a job, it's the night before, hey, you got this job, you got to be here at such and such a time. What advice would you have for those coming in, just to kind of realize and understand that? But then also on the flip side, sometimes when it's a lot, sometimes it takes a lot of different things in the mix to get that person there on time, if they have a caregiver, if they have a disability. So did I make any sense?
Yeah. So, you never know what the steps are going to be. Every project is different. So with some projects, you send a tape, you don't hear from them for 6 months, and then you get a call one day that you booked it. You're like, there's no callback. It's been 6 months. Like, I have no idea. You never know. That does happen. I'm not saying that nothing's really the norm, but I would say that can happen. Often you'll have a Zoom callback. Nothing ever happens in person. I've only had one in-person session since March 2020.
Wow. Okay.
I was in session the day that the world shut down. We were told to go home. You'll be back in 2 weeks and we'll resume this movie. It never happened. Obviously, I remember the last kid I saw. Like, I remember, and I was told, like, you can't let anybody in the room, but he had come so far. I was like, I have to let him in. But I'm not going back to in-person stuff unless it's required of the producer and there's certain COVID regulations. And especially if I'm working with a vulnerable population, it's like, to be putting people that have disabilities, it's not smart, it's not safe. So I have been casting off of tape and Zoom since then, and been fine. And, series regulars, big, long commitment projects. But we're starting to go back in person a bit. So that might be the second step on something. Other times I'll ask for a retape, or I'll ask for a tape with some direction, and you book it off of that. You just never know. But yeah, you do have to be available at the drop of a hat. And sometimes it's a big thing. Like, I was just on the phone with someone who is a deaf actor who has the opportunity to be on a really big project, and it requires relocating for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Starting in like any day now. I think it starts in March or April, like relocating, I'm saying really, really soon. And she was like, and she works a full-time job, but I said, this is the biggest project. It's a huge buzzed about project with 2 celebrity leads that I know a lot about the project because they've brought me in on certain conversations. I was like, you can't say no. Yeah. I don't want you to give up your life and your livelihood, but she's an adult. So she doesn't have to worry about a caretaker for herself. Luckily, in terms of ability, she's okay to go by herself. But yeah, she has to find someone to sublet her apartment for 6 months, starting tomorrow, probably for March 1st, realistically, maybe the 15th. I don't know, but very soon. She has a business that she runs, because people don't make their living acting usually, especially people with disabilities, no matter how talented they are.
Right.
But I just was talking to her today, and I was like, I've known her I've known her since I think 2015, 2016. I was like, I love you. I'm telling you honestly, you have to take this job. You have to figure it out. Normally I would say to someone, you have to weigh the pros and cons. You have to do this. I was like, this is a job that will change your life.
Yeah.
But you can't always do that, especially when you are somebody who, if it isn't a job that will change your life, because pretty rare to get a job like that. And this is enough money that I'm like, girl, you
Yeah.
got to figure it out.
Yeah.
But normally that's not the case. And it's hard enough for any actor to do that, let alone an actor from the disability community that also
Mhm.
maybe needs to figure out the caretaker that can come with them. We're having alternating caretakers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something I've dealt with a lot with kids when I've been just with casting kids at Nickelodeon for so long is, one guardian comes for 2 weeks on set, then grandma comes, then
Mhm.
Aunt Barb comes, then Susie Joe,
Whole
your
family,
cousin's neighbor.
Right.
So it's a lot.
Yeah. I'm actually going to be leaving my job. I'm going to be working for Faith.
Look at that.
Yeah, she can
Wish
fire
you
me.
luck because
Because what?
we need a barrier.
What?
We need a barrier.
Bury her. She needs to bury me. What?
No barrier.
A barrier.
Like between us.
Oh, a barrier. Oh, so meaning, okay, because I annoy you. Well, I frustrate you.
That's part of having
We
a
have that-
mom.
Yes, we have that love-hate, I wouldn't say hate relationship.
I get it.
Where you
My
need
mom's
that
your way
space.
now. I get it.
So speaking of that too, because I know that was one of my concerns with Faith, with a lot of the individuals that are of age, they're getting Social Security, they're on Medicaid. They have to be careful they don't go over that threshold with the money.
That I dropped it because I was like, you can't make over a certain amount of money.
Right, but then that's when I spoke with Danielle and Elizabeth about kind of going over that to taking some of the jobs that are lower, but also she had said, Elizabeth had said that she has had to do it where she contacted Social Security and let them know this is like a one-time thing, or, it's not an ongoing job. It would be different if it was an ongoing job, and then you would be fine to take that and push your Social Security aside, obviously, but just making sure that none of your benefits get, disrupted. Have you had a lot of people with concerns with that?
Yeah, definitely with concerns, but like you said, it's like if you're smart and you communicate what you need to communicate to the government.
Mhm.
I know how annoying it is to have to get in contact and do all of that legwork. So I'm not saying, oh, you just give them a call and they,
Right.
but there is that work that you
Have to do.
Yeah, you have to do to ensure that you don't risk losing your
Mhm.
benefits. And, those are not things you want to risk losing.
Mhm.
But if you do get something ongoing, yeah, it's worth giving that up.
Yeah.
But it's you have to have an ongoing contract that has proof that it's,
Mhm.
something that's and if it's something that you're going to end up getting residuals with, like a TV series, there's a lot of checks and balances before you would give your Social Security benefits away.
Mhm.
And also you would want a lawyer to be looking at those sorts of contracts before you sign something to make sure that you're putting yourself in a good position. But for a one-off, like what we had talked about,
Mhm.
if it's, something small, you're allowed to do that work as long as you're keeping proper records of what it is that you're doing, what you're signing, what the money is going to be, what the money, when it ends, that it's just this 1 month.
Mhm.
But you can still be doing that. And I think, it's important that an actor has the opportunity to act
Mhm.
and for you to put yourself out there and try. If you're lucky enough to book it, then you can do all that, annoying headache work to get it filed properly. But I don't think people should let it stand in their way from auditioning because there's no guarantee of
Mhm.
work.
Yeah. And do you recommend kids getting professional coaching prior to big auditions, or do you prefer the raw talent, less polished?
So I love real kids. I think there's a lot of different aesthetics in the field of what we look for in kids. So I come from the very raw, real, I think Nickelodeon, that was where I, grew up as a casting director. So I'm used to these kids. I want to see kids that are funny, that are smart, that, have heart. I'm not looking for this super polished, artificial, saccharine sweet. That's just not the brand that I, was groomed with, and it's not what I gravitated to, and it's not what I gravitate to.
Right.
I really love real kids. I think sometimes I don't think a kid needs to work with someone for the initial audition typically. I would like if it's someone who I think is so close, but could use a little bit of guidance just to make sure they feel confident in the room with the choices they're making, then you might want to work with a coach. But for a first audition, you don't even know if you're what they're looking for, you know, because also it could be any number of reasons that, you know, the logistics, it just aren't on your side, and to invest in coaching, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And as a casting director, I know not everyone's like this, but I'm like this. And my casting associate is the same way. We'll work with kids if we see something. We'll work with adults if we see something in someone that we think is close, but they just need a little finesse. But I don't want people spending a lot of money. I just don't.
Yeah. And also too, let's talk memorizing their lines so quickly and the troubles of that, you know, it's obviously harder for her and people that have visual, you know, different disabilities, you know.
I worked with Mr. Smith at the drama program to memorize my lines 100 times over again. The first time I got up on stage, couldn't even say anything, acted like I was going to throw up. The second time, I got it like that.
Yeah,
but
she nailed it.
100 times over again to get it.
Yeah,
because you feel good when you're memorized, Faith? Like, do you feel like you can give a better performance?
And I think you were just nervous because it was live on stage that time too.
Yeah.
You know, and some days she has it and some days she doesn't, just like all of us. Some days you have it and some days you don't, depending upon how you feel that day.
Yeah.
You know? A flip-flop, I forgot.
A flip-flop, I forgot.
No, I mean, we all have good days and bad days. And I also see that with actors when I'm, you know, like, this was just not a good audition from whoever. Like, and I know that they're so much better than that. You know?
Do they have people on set that help work with them on their lines and stuff?
So especially if you have kids, there's often an acting coach on set. That was a big part of our job. That was, I think people don't really know when you're at a network, for at least at Nickelodeon, I really loved that, was that we got to hire the acting coaches and work with them and kind of like decide what acting coach kind of fit best with certain shows and guide, not that we did the hiring, but guide the team on that. So usually when there's a lot of kids on set, or if there is a kid from an underrepresented community and it's going to be really hard to find the right kid, but you find that raw kid, or you find someone who fits the exact breakdown and they have something, but they might just need a little bit of help, there's very often going to be an acting coach. And like, I'm working on a movie right now where we're doing a huge search, and we need a Chinese girl who can play 10 years old. And it's very heavy content. It's a beautiful story. It's incredible. I mean, it's one of the best scripts I've ever read. And I've been, you know, reading scripts for 30 years almost at this point. So but I told them they need an acting coach. Like, I can't find you the kid that you need, because you need a kid that's really raw and really new and is 100% Chinese and can hit these levels. And you also need someone to work with them in that moment on these levels. You need an acting coach. Like, it's a worthy investment, but that's the production paying for it.
Right. Okay.
Who's making the money if the movie's good is, you know, you get your fee to act. They get, if the movie is winning Oscars and all these things and the performances are great, like, it'll get you more work, and it's a great opportunity for you to work with a coach. But, you know, other than maybe saying before the test, like the network test or something on a big project, like maybe work with someone for like, you know, one session. But I think also, like, I have a friend who's an agent who called me last night, 2 nights ago, last night. No, I know time blends when you have a baby and you don't know when you're sleeping.
The days tend to run together.
Yeah. But she called me last night to tell me that somebody that I sent her a long time ago, who I really believe in, booked this role. And she was really excited to tell me. And she was like, you've always been in her corner. She needs a coach before she shoots. I think, are you coaching right now? I was like, I don't have the time. Like, I love her. I don't have the time. But I think the way that this agent approached it was really smart. She said, you know, she worked with her client. Then when the client booked and she knows her client's going to be on set with, like, I mean, it's a huge project, like, with a lot of eyes on it, with 2 very big leads. It's the 2nd season of this series. She's like, she's going to be intimidated and she needs a coach before she gets on set. So, and I said, it's, you know what, like, I get that. And it's not about her acting. This girl can act, but she's never been on a set like that before. It's intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's not like a one line thing. It's like a big scene, 3 scenes or something like that, where it's her and this, megastar.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That would be intimidating.
I want people to be set up for success. Like,
Right.
and ready to go, even if they are having one of those days where flip flop, I forgot happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And what about, do you find a lot of families when they come in, oh gosh, what is his name? You booked him in the, Broadway play.
Colton?
No, Sebastian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find a lot of people with disabilities, like if their families go in, like that they can get booked for as extras, like, and work on?
I've booked them as a family.
That's what I thought.
Like not as extras, but booked them as a family. And I do a lot of projects. And that really became a thing during the pandemic. But that's a great example of a family that like everybody has personality.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody brings something to the table. I think Sebastian is one of the funniest people on earth. So he saw me really, really pregnant. I cast his sister in a show. I did a lab with that Netflix sponsor that Respectability did. That was really amazing. And I cast his sister in the show. And she was backstage. So I was with him at one point, and his mom or dad was like, what do you think Danielle's having? And she was like, he's like, a baby. And they're like, no, boy or girl. He's like, I don't know. You asked me what she's having and it's a baby. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Very
so
cute. And then I was producing something, the first project I produced, which is called Disabled Down Center, which was all disabled performers playing characters, doing songs from Broadway shows as characters that we've never seen played by disabled actors, but there's no reason we haven't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why can't, a producer and the producers, one of the leads, have a disability? Why can't Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors have a disability? Like there are certain characters where it might not be as believable based off what they're, like if you were looking at Damn Yankees, a baseball player on a mainstream team, they could have a disability, but I understand someone saying they wouldn't be a wheelchair user. But Sebastian was in that, and I was with him all day, and helping all the kid actors. I was sort of like the kid wrangler, and I was lining them up and lined up with them. And he said to me, "What are you singing?" And I was like, "I'm not singing, Sebastian." He's like, "Well, you've been here all day with everybody that's singing, so I thought you would sing." I'm like, "Sebastian, have you ever seen me sing? You come in an audition for me all the time. I'm always the casting director." He's like, "Yeah, but today it seemed like you were here for a rehearsal." It was great. It was so funny, but it's nice when you have especially during COVID, it's been nice to have a family that you can book. And also just because authenticity is so hot, people would love to cast a family, like someone that a kid's really interacting with that, comedy, especially if it's like a very quick thing that shoots from home or anything like that, where it's like a self-contained thing is so much easier.
Mm-hmm. I did, I was an extra on House of Cards. Yeah, House of Cards. But that'd be so awesome if she could have been on like a big set like that, just to kind of see because they're long days and it's like hurry up and wait and moving the set around and it was pretty cool.
They're coming out with a live action of Little Mermaid.
Are they?
Yep.
I'm so excited.
Oh yeah.
I love Little Mermaid. That's like one of my favorites. I'm very excited for that too.
So what advice, because I know we have to wrap it up, what advice would you have out there for individuals with disabilities and their families if it's something that they would like to do to pursue a career in the industry?
I think, making your own content is always really smart, whether that's doing a podcast like this or doing, like digital content that you put on YouTube. Creating your own content is really smart. And there are great opportunities like with the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge, which I work with every year. I love them there. I love Nick Novicki, which is just, encouraging people to make their own work and people partner together, even if you're not in the same geographic location, to shoot over Zoom, to create content together, to edit, to take a role But the more you learn and the more hats you can wear, so
Mhm.
learning how to edit your own content, learning how to color correct, learning how to write, direct, do all of those things is really smart. Self-advocating is really smart, being on Actors Access, being on Backstage, looking at all of those things, because even if your rep isn't submitting you, you should be self-submitting. You should be putting yourself out there. Take advantage of anything that's free and available training wise. There's often like one-off acting classes you can do with really good people, or apply for a scholarship, especially when it comes to disability. People, there's a real need for, there's authentic representation is what, people need right now and want to see. Things are not getting greenlit that are not that. And we can't create that content unless these actors are provided training, and that's trickling down. And if you see an acting class that you really want to take that you can't afford, ask if they provide scholarships. Put it out there. There's nothing, you're not going to get told, hit the road. You might be told kindly no, but no one's going to hurt you. You might as well give it a try.
Right.
And you can take your own headshots. Like, there are really great tips on backstage.com, which is just a great resource overall, and how to have a good composed headshot, especially for kids. You do not need a professional photo right away. Kids change all the time too. I don't recommend professional photos until a kid is 6 anyway, but even above that, there's a lot you can do from home. We all have iPhones or smartphones of some sort now, or one you could borrow to take a photo really quickly. There's a lot more in your own, capabilities now, regardless of your ability. And that's important. And, if you love this, keep at it. Like, know that people also go through years where they do not book, and it has nothing to do with anything. It can be like that. A lot of times right out of the gate, you're kind of hot and fresh and new. And there's also something about someone who just seems aloof and doesn't care that can be a big booker thing. And then, it might slow for a little bit, but keep at it, keep having fun, keep making content with your friends. As long as it's fun, keep doing it. Also, just, I always want to drive this home to anybody, especially people with disabilities, that I do see getting preyed on more by scams. You never pay for an audition. If you work with an agent, they don't require you to use their photos. If it's a legitimate agency, that you pay for their photos. You never have to pay for classes. They only make money if you make money. That's how good representation, legit representation works, not scams. So if you ever have a question about something or think something, if it smells fishy, it probably is.
It is. Yeah. And then one last thing, as a token of appreciation for being a guest on our show, I hand stamp tokens 1 letter at a time with a hammer. And I put them on bracelets and necklaces and anklets and keychains. And because words are powerful and they're meaningful, and, they could be a daily reminder. So what word would you choose if you could choose one word, and why? And then I'm going to hand stamp it on a piece.
Oh, that's so hard. I mean, my thing is, inclusion and or access, or like equitable opportunity is my other big, that when people don't understand, like, why is it that we have to go the extra mile to do certain things, or like how to, I always want to make, my big thing is access. Like, being the most accessible casting director is really important to me, that I never, I answer every DM. Maybe it like, and I feel guilt if it takes me more than like a few days, but I think that there's a really big, there needs to be access to us, and people need to feel like their voices are heard. And that's the only way that the industry is equitable, is if we, everybody can submit, which is why I do post every job on Actors Access, so that it's not only Breakdown Express where an agent can submit. I want people to be able to have direct access. And to me, that's an important way that I find new talent. So I guess maybe access would be my word.
You got it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule between work and being a new mama.
Of course.
I appreciate it, and hopefully we will connect again soon.
Yeah.
And
it was good to chat with you both.
I I would say thanks for your advice.
Thanks for your advice. Okay, stay tuned, everybody, for another episode of the Guilbault Girls.
Bye. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for joining us as we spread awareness through our personal stories and the many resources shared. You can help us by joining our village simply by sharing our show to the masses. If you would like to support the Guilbault Girls on another level, click on the link in the show notes to make a donation in any amount. Add your address and you'll receive a hand-stamped token with the word village on it in appreciation. Be sure to subscribe to our Guilbault Girls podcast and YouTube show, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Guilbault Girls. Till next time.